The Galactic Council chamber hummed with the quiet murmurs of a routine session. The high domed ceiling, crafted from a blend of crystalline materials and rare metals, reflected the soft blue light that represented neutrality in interstellar diplomacy. Representatives from dozens of species occupied their designated sectors, many anticipating nothing more than trade disputes and minor territorial adjustments. Ambassador Zoran of the Han Federation stood at the central podium, his slender frame seeming to waver under the Council's collective gaze. The Han were renowned throughout the galaxy for their medical technology and healing arts. Their entire civilization built upon the foundation of preserving and extending life. Their bodies reflected this specialization, tall, with elongated fingers perfect for delicate procedures, and enhanced visual organs capable of perceiving microscopic details invisible to most species. "Honorable Council," Zoran began, his voice resonating through the chamber with a subtle harmonic quality characteristic of Ha'an's speech. "I come before you not with a petition for trade adjustments or territorial recognition, but with a plea for survival." Speaker Dorn of the Alani shifted uncomfortably in her seat. The Alani, with their crystalline exoskeletons, made a distinctive chiming sound whenever they moved. "Ambassador Zoran, the agenda indicated routine matters. If this is an emergency, proper protocols." "There was no time," Zoran interrupted, his usual diplomatic restraint cracking. "My world stands on the precipice of destruction." The chamber quieted as Zoran activated a holographic display. The serene blue light of the chamber was suddenly invaded by images of devastation. Ha'an cities with medical centers in ruins, supply lines severed, and what appeared to be systematic destruction of research facilities. 6 months ago, the Krath Empire approached us with an offer of security partnership, Zoran continued, his voice steadying as he fell into the rhythm of formal address. "They promised protection in exchange for preferential access to our medical technologies. We reluctantly agreed, believing the arrangement temporary." The hologram shifted to display a formidable Krath warship in orbit around the azure world of Ha'an. The Krath were a warrior species, evolved from apex predators on their homeworld, heavily muscled with natural armor, plating across vital areas, and possessing redundant organ systems that made them remarkably difficult to kill in combat. 3 months ago, they changed the terms, no longer partners, but masters. They demanded exclusive rights to experimental treatments, commandeered our orbital platforms, and began forcing our medical specialists to develop combat enhancement drugs. Zoran's fingers trembled slightly as he manipulated the holographic controls. When we resisted, they demonstrated their resolve. The images shifted again to show the smoldering ruins of what had once been Ha'an's premier medical university. Bodies lay scattered among the wreckage, the distinctive white robes of Han healers stained with the blue fluid that served as their blood. 2 weeks ago, they delivered an ultimatum: complete submission or complete destruction. "We are not warriors." Zoran's voice finally broke. "We cannot defend ourselves. We need military intervention, or the Han civilization, and its medical knowledge that benefits countless worlds, will cease to exist." A murmur rippled through the chamber as representatives consulted with their advisors. The Grez delegation, insectoid beings known for their pragmatism, buzzed in agitation. The Nexus Collective, a hive intelligence represented by humanoid proxies, remained eerily still as they communicated through invisible quantum links. Speaker Dorn rose to her full height, her crystalline form catching and refracting the chamber's light. "This is indeed grave news, Ambassador. The Council has protocols for such situations." She gestured to her aides, who began distributing data packets to the assembled representatives. "We must consider our response carefully." Over the next hour, proposals emerged from various delegations. The Alani offered 15 warships, but acknowledged they would require 5 months to reach Han space. The Gress suggested a humanitarian mission to evacuate critical medical personnel and preserve their knowledge. The Nexus proposed developing automated defense drones that could be deployed to Ha'an, though production would take at least a year. Smaller species offered conditional support that came with political requirements or demanded exorbitant compensation. With each proposal, Zoran's posture slumped further, hope visibly draining from his tall frame. 5 months is too long, he finally said, interrupting a Gress representative mid-proposal. The Krath ultimatum expires in 3 weeks. By the time your ships arrive, there may be nothing left to save. An uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber. The limitations of the Council's military response capabilities had rarely been so starkly exposed. Many species had deliberately reduced their military forces after joining the galactic community, relying on collective security that now seemed woefully inadequate. From the back of the chamber, a figure rose. Ambassador Lee of Earth stepped forward, her movements deliberate and confident. Humans had joined the galactic community just 60 years earlier, newcomers by the standards of species that measured their interstellar presence in millennia. Their admission had been controversial, with many council members citing humanity's fractious history and relatively primitive technology as reasons for caution. Earth can deploy a response force to Ha'an space within 3 weeks, Ambassador Lee stated, her voice clear and unwavering. The chamber erupted in a mixture of dismissive laughter and skeptical murmurs. With respect, Ambassador, Speaker Dorn responded, not bothering to hide her condescension. This is not a moment for human bravado. The Krath control one of the largest military forces in the sector. Your species possesses barely 50 mid-range vessels capable of interstellar deployment. Ambassador Lee smiled thinly. That's correct, Speaker. 50 vessels is precisely what we intend to send. That would be suicide, a Gress representative chittered. The Krath would destroy such a small force without effort. Perhaps, Lee acknowledged with a slight nod. But we will be there in 3 weeks, not 5 months. And with respect to the Council's collective wisdom, humans have some experience with asymmetric warfare. Zoran straightened, a faint glimmer of hope returning to his features. The Han Federation would welcome Earth's assistance, however modest it may be. Speaker Dorn seemed about to object further, but instead sighed, a sound like wind through crystal chimes. Very well. Let the record show that Earth has volunteered a response force to the Han crisis. This council will reconvene in 1 month to assess the situation. She struck a ceremonial chime, signaling the session's end. May wisdom guide us all. As the chamber began to empty, Ambassador Lee approached Zoran. I need everything you have on Krath military capabilities, especially their communication systems and command structure. Zoran blinked in surprise. You're actually planning to fight them. I had assumed your offer was primarily symbolic. Lee's expression hardened. Earth doesn't make symbolic gestures when lives are at stake. Ambassador, we'll be at Han in 3 weeks with everything we can bring. She paused, then added more softly. And while I cannot promise victory, I can promise this. The Krath will know they've been in a fight. Within hours of the council session, Earth's military command activated what they had designated Operation Vanguard. 50 mid-range vessels, a mixture of destroyers, frigates, and specialized electronic warfare ships, began preparation for immediate deployment. Unlike the massive dreadnoughts favored by species like the Krath, human vessels emphasized speed, versatility, and coordinated operations rather than raw firepower. General Marcus Blake, appointed overall commander of the operation, stood before a holographic display of the Ha'an system in Earth's orbital command center. At 58, Blake had spent his career studying alien military doctrines, always searching for the intersection between human ingenuity and advanced technology. His weathered face reflected both the weight of command and the spark of intellectual challenge. The Krath are expecting us to either back down or charge in like heroes in an ancient epic, he told his assembled staff officers. We're going to do neither. Admiral Amelia Stone, commanding the naval component, nodded in agreement. At 45, she had earned her reputation through brilliant tactical innovations during Earth's limited border skirmishes with minor powers. The Krath rely on individual ship superiority and rigid command hierarchies. Each vessel is powerful but inflexible. They expect set-piece battles where bigger guns win. And on the ground? Blake asked, turning to Colonel Sarah Davis, the designated ground force commander. Davis, a compact woman with close-cropped gray hair and intense eyes, manipulated the holographic display to focus on Ha'an's surface features. 20,000 troops, general, light armor, mobile artillery, and drone support. The Krath ground forces emphasize individual warrior prowess and direct confrontation. We'll emphasize mobility, combined arms, and indigenous support. Blake studied the display for a long moment. Intelligence? Major Evan Parks stepped forward, his lean frame almost disappearing behind the holographic projections. Still analyzing Ha'an data, sir. But we've identified a potential vulnerability in Krath communication systems. They use an Upsilon 9 frequency modulation that's efficient but predictable. With the right jamming patterns, we might be able to disrupt their command and control. Work it up, Blake ordered. I want options for communication denial across their entire battle space. As the staff officers continued their briefing, Blake found his thoughts returning to the council chamber. The dismissive attitudes didn't bother him. Humans had faced such skepticism since their first contact with galactic civilization. What concerned him was the complacency, the assumption that superior technology eliminated the need for tactical innovation. The Krath thought the same way. That would be their undoing. In the void between stars, 50 human vessels accelerated to their maximum sustainable velocity. Unlike the elegant, energy-efficient drives of more advanced species, human FTL systems were brute force affairs that consumed massive amounts of power but delivered reliable performance. The ships traveled in 5 distinct groups, a formation that mystified the few alien observers tracking their progress. Aboard the command vessel, UES Prometheus, Admiral Stone supervised final combat preparations. Seal all communication channels except tactical frequencies, she ordered. From this point forward, we maintain emissions control and operate according to the Aurora Protocol. The Aurora Protocol represented a radical departure from conventional galactic naval doctrine. Instead of concentrating firepower in massive capital ships, it distributed attack capabilities across multiple smaller vessels, each capable of independent action but trained to function as parts of a coordinated whole. The concept had evolved from ancient Earth naval tactics, updated for 3-dimensional space combat. Deploy kinetic missile platforms at maximum range, Stone continued. Prepare electronic warfare suite for full spectrum jamming on identified Krath frequencies. While the human fleet approached, Han endured the increasingly harsh Krath occupation. Ambassador Zoran had returned to his homeworld, working tirelessly to prepare his people for what might come. The Han were not warriors by nature or training, but necessity had forced them to adapt. Using their intimate knowledge of their planet's geography, they established hidden resistance cells, stockpiled medical supplies, and prepared for the possibility of guerrilla warfare. We cannot match the Krath in direct combat, Zoran told the assembled resistance leaders in an underground medical facility. But we can support the humans when they arrive. Each of you has been assigned sectors to monitor. Learn everything about Krath patrol patterns, command posts, and vulnerable supply lines. A senior medical researcher raised a trembling hand. And if the humans fail? If they do not arrive in time? Zoran's expression remained composed, though the slight vibration of his specialized optical organs betrayed his anxiety. Then, we preserve what we can of our knowledge and our people. But I have spoken with the humans. They understand what is at stake, and they are determined in a way I have rarely witnessed. The Krath, meanwhile, had detected the approaching human fleet, but dismissed it as a meaningless gesture. War Leader Voss, commander of the Krath occupation forces, viewed the tactical display with contempt. 50 vessels, he growled to his subordinates. The humans insult us with such a token force. Dispatch 80 cruisers to intercept and destroy them before they reach Han orbit. Make it quick and overwhelming. I want footage to broadcast to the Council showing the price of interference. Battlemaster Call, commander of ground forces, clicked his armored mandibles in agreement. Perhaps we should capture a few humans alive. Public executions might reinforce our message to the Han resistance. War Leader Voss grunted approval. Sensible. The Han need to understand there will be no rescue, from humans or anyone else. He turned back to the tactical display, already dismissing the human fleet from his mind. The coming battle hardly deserved the name. As the human and Krath forces converged near the outer reaches of the Han system, General Blake finalized the operational plan from his command center aboard the UES Prometheus. The holographic display showed the approaching Krath vessels, 80 cruisers in a standard wedge formation, designed to concentrate firepower against a similarly arranged opponent. They're exactly where we want them, Blake observed, turning to Admiral Stone. Commence Operation Aurora. Stone nodded and activated the fleet-wide command channel. All vessels, execute Aurora Protocol. Electronic warfare units, initiate jamming sequence. Missile platforms, prepare for simultaneous launch on my mark. Throughout the human fleet, officers acknowledged the commands, their ships maneuvering into pre-planned positions. The missile platforms, specialized vessels carrying hundreds of kinetic projectiles, moved into position behind the main formation. On the Krath flagship, War Leader Voss frowned as his tactical officers reported unusual movements from the human fleet. What are they doing? That formation makes no tactical sense. Before his officers could respond, every communication channel erupted with interference. The carefully modulated jamming, targeted specifically at Krath command frequencies, severed connections between the flagship and the rest of the fleet. "Restore communications!" Voss bellowed, his massive frame towering over the cowering communications officer. "Impossible. War Leader," the officer stammered. "They're using precisely modulated interference patterns across all our secure frequencies. We can't." "Launch every missile we have," Stone commanded aboard the Prometheus. "Execute cross-targeting protocols." The human missile platforms disgorged their payloads, over 1,000 kinetic projectiles accelerating toward the Krath formation. Unlike the energy weapons favored by most advanced species, these were essentially sophisticated bullets, masses of dense material propelled to tremendous velocities. They couldn't be stopped by energy shields designed to disperse beam weapons, and their simple guidance systems were resistant to electronic countermeasures. The Krath vessels, operating without coordinated command, responded individually. Some maintained formation, others broke ranks to evade the incoming missiles. This was precisely what the human commanders had anticipated. As the missile swarm approached, the human fleet executed a complex maneuver. Rather than charging directly at the Krath formation, they split into their 5 pre-designated groups, each targeting a different section of the now disorganized Krath fleet. "They're breaking formation," Major Parks reported from the tactical station. "Jamming is holding. They're unable to coordinate countermeasures." The kinetic missiles struck the Krath vessels with devastating effect. Designed to penetrate armor rather than explode, they punched through hull plating and wreaked havoc on internal systems. Where Krath energy shields activated, multiple missiles targeted the same section, overwhelming the generators with repeated impacts. "Second wave," Stone ordered calmly. "Target their propulsion systems." A fresh barrage of missiles launched from the human vessels, which were now executing a complex, three-dimensional dance around the Krath formation. Without centralized command, the Krath ships fired indiscriminately, their powerful energy weapons occasionally hitting their own vessels as often as they targeted the nimbler human ships. The space around Ha'an erupted in a spectacle both terrifying and mesmerizing. Thousands of kinetic projectiles streaked across the void, their trails briefly visible as they superheated the trace gases of interstellar space. Energy beams from Krath weapons sliced through emptiness, occasionally connecting with human vessels, but more often firing into vacant space as their targets executed pre-planned evasive maneuvers. War Leader Voss watched in mounting horror as his tactical display showed vessel after vessel going dark. "This is impossible," he snarled. "They're using primitive weapons. How are they penetrating our defenses?" "War Leader," his second-in-command reported, mandibles clicking nervously. "We've lost 30 vessels in the initial exchange. The humans are targeting our command and propulsion systems with precision strikes. They're avoiding destruction in favor of disablement." Voss slammed an armored fist into the tactical display, cracking its surface. "Recall all vessels to defensive positions around Ha'an. We will regroup and crush them when they approach the planet." He turned to his ground forces commander. "Battlemaster Call. Prepare your warriors for possible ground action. If the humans somehow reach the surface, they will learn why Krath warriors are feared throughout the galaxy." The first phase of the battle had lasted less than 6 hours. The Krath fleet, minus 30 disabled or destroyed vessels, retreated to Ha'an orbit. The human fleet, having suffered damage to 12 ships but no complete losses, regrouped at the system's edge. First phase objectives accomplished. Admiral Stone reported to General Blake. "The Krath fleet is disorganized and reduced by over 30%. Their command and control remains compromised." Blake nodded, studying the updated tactical display. "They'll adapt. War Leader Voss will establish a defensive perimeter around Ha'an and expect us to charge into his guns." He smiled thinly. "Which is why we won't do that. Prepare for Phase 2. While the naval battle unfolded in space, Battlemaster Call deployed 15,000 Krath warriors to Ha'an's surface, clad in powered armor that enhanced their already formidable physical capabilities. They established fortified positions around key Han medical facilities and government centers. "The humans may have surprised our fleet," Call addressed his battalion commanders. "But if they reach the surface, they will face true Krath warriors in direct combat. No clever tactics will save them from our strength and valor." His warriors roared approval, striking their armored chests in ritual affirmation. The Krath ground forces represented the elite of their society, warriors who had proven themselves in countless battles across the galaxy. Each considered themselves equal to at least 5 enemy combatants. Ambassador Zoran observed the Krath deployments from a hidden command center deep beneath Han's surface. The resistance networks he had established provided real-time intelligence on enemy positions and strengths. "They're concentrating around our major population centers," he informed the human command via a secure quantum channel. Typical Krath tactics. They expect to face and crush opposition in set-piece battles. Colonel Davis acknowledged the information. "Perfect. Keep your people hidden until the signal. When we land, we'll need precise intelligence on their command posts and communication nodes." The second phase of Operation Aurora began 24 hours after the initial space engagement. Instead of a frontal assault against the Krath orbital defenses, the human fleet executed a complex series of microjumps, brief FTL hops that allowed them to bypass the main Krath formation. War Leader Voss stared in disbelief as human vessels suddenly appeared in Ha'an's lower atmosphere, well inside his defensive perimeter. "Impossible! No one uses FTL drives within a planetary gravity well." His tactical officer responded with barely concealed panic. "The humans are using modified drives, War Leader. They're sacrificing safety protocols for tactical advantage." Indeed, several human vessels showed signs of severe stress from the risky maneuvers. But the gamble paid off. Before the Krath fleet could reposition, human dropships were already descending to Han's surface, carrying ground forces and equipment to pre-designated landing zones away from major craft concentrations. Colonel Davis directed the landing operations from the lead dropship. Deploy mobile artillery units first, followed by drone swarms. I want a defensive perimeter established before the craft can organize a response. The human ground forces moved with practiced efficiency. Unlike the craft warriors with their emphasis on individual combat prowess, the human soldiers operated in small, specialized teams. Mobile artillery units, lightweight, rapid-fire weapons mounted on all-terrain vehicles, established firing positions overlooking craft deployments. Drone swarms, hundreds of small, semi-autonomous aerial vehicles equipped with sensors and light weapons, created a surveillance network that provided real-time intelligence on enemy movements. Battlemaster Call received reports of the human landings with growing frustration. "They're avoiding direct engagement," he growled to his battalion commanders, "using hit-and-run tactics against our supply lines and communication centers." "Cowards," one commander snarled. "They fear facing craft warriors in honorable combat." Call wasn't so certain. Dispatch hunter teams to locate and eliminate their command elements. Once their leadership falls, their formations will collapse. The hunter teams, elite craft warriors, specially trained for assassination missions, moved out, confident in their ability to track and destroy the human leadership. What they encountered instead were carefully prepared ambushes. Using intelligence provided by Han resistance fighters, human forces had identified likely approach routes and prepared accordingly. When craft hunter teams emerged from cover, they faced coordinated fire from multiple positions, drone-launched precision munitions, and indirect artillery support. On the third day of ground operations, Battlemaster Call received the disturbing news that 12 of his 15 hunter teams had been eliminated without inflicting significant casualties on the humans. Worse, his forward bases were reporting coordinated attacks from both human forces and previously hidden Han resistance fighters. "They're using the Han civilians as shields," he raged to his staff, "hiding among non-combatants." His intelligence officer cautiously corrected him. "Reports indicate the Han are willing participants. Battlemaster. They're providing the humans with intelligence, medical support, and even engaging in direct action against our forces." This revelation stunned Call. The Han were known throughout the galaxy as pacifists, dedicated to healing rather than harming. That they would take up arms, even in self-defense, contradicted everything the Krath had assumed about them. "Gather our main force," Cal ordered, after a moment of contemplation. "We will launch a full assault against the primary human landing zone. Once their main force is engaged and destroyed, these scattered attacks will cease." The Krath ground forces consolidated, assembling 15,000 warriors for a massive frontal assault against what their intelligence identified as the main human position. It was precisely what Colonel Davis had anticipated. "They're moving exactly as predicted," she informed General Blake via secure communication. "All Krath ground forces are converging on the decoy position." Blake's response was immediate. "Execute the trap. Colonel, you have operational freedom." As the Krath battle formation advanced across the open terrain, leading to the supposed human stronghold, they maintained tight discipline. Warriors moved in staggered lines, portable energy shields raised, weapon systems primed. It was an impressive display of military might, and it walked directly into disaster. The ground beneath the leading Krath units suddenly erupted as pre-planted munitions detonated in sequence. Simultaneously, human mobile artillery units that had secretly repositioned during the night opened fire from 3 directions. The coordinated barrage targeted the Krath formation's flanks, driving the warriors toward a central killing zone. Krath commanders attempted to reorganize their forces, but their communications were once again jammed by specialized human electronic warfare units. Individual warriors fought bravely, but without coordination, each making decisions that might have been sensible in isolation but created chaos in aggregate. From hidden positions throughout the battlefield, Han resistance fighters emerged, not to engage in direct combat, but to guide human fire teams to optimal positions. Their intimate knowledge of the terrain, particularly the acidic marshlands and ion-rich rock formations that affected sensor readings, proved invaluable. By the battle's 8th hour, the Krath ground force was in full retreat. Of the 15,000 warriors who had begun the assault, nearly 9,000 were dead or incapacitated. Their remaining forces fragmented into small groups, cut off from command and supply lines. Battlemaster Call, observing the disaster from his command post, made the difficult decision to abandon the surface campaign. "Order all remaining forces to evacuation points," he commanded, his voice devoid of its usual confidence. "We cannot win this ground war." His aide, a veteran of countless campaigns, dared to ask the question weighing on every Krath officer's mind. How did they do this? They are technologically inferior, fewer in number. Call had no answer. The humans had violated every principle of honorable combat, as the Krath understood it. They had refused direct engagement, used terrain and surprise rather than strength, coordinated with civilians, and prioritized disruption over destruction. It was, by Krath standards, dishonorable and cowardly. It was also devastatingly effective. In orbit, war leader Voss faced a similarly deteriorating situation. The human fleet had executed another series of microjumps, this time appearing behind the Krath defensive formation. Once again, their missile swarms targeted propulsion and command systems rather than attempting to destroy vessels outright. "We've lost orbital superiority," his tactical officer reported. "The humans are establishing a blockade. Our ground forces cannot be evacuated." Voss considered his options. The remaining Krath vessels could still inflict significant damage on the human fleet in a suicidal charge. But to what end? The ground campaign was lost, and with it, control of Han. "Send the signal," he finally ordered, his massive frame seeming to deflate. "We are withdrawing from the Han system." Throughout Krath-occupied facilities on Han's surface, automated systems received the withdrawal code. Krath warriors, trained to obey without question, abandoned their positions and moved toward emergency extraction points, pre-designated areas where specialized escape pods waited. The human forces allowed the retreat to proceed without interference. "Let them go," General Blake ordered when junior officers suggested pursuing the fleeing Krath. "We've accomplished our objective. Han is secure." 48 hours after the Krath withdrawal signal, Ambassador Zorin emerged from the underground command center to survey what remained of his world's capital city. The elegant spires of medical research facilities stood damaged but largely intact. Han citizens emerged tentatively from shelters, their specialized optical organs adjusting to natural light after days in hiding. Zorin found General Blake and Colonel Davis coordinating cleanup operations from a makeshift command post established in what had once been a public garden. "General Blake," Zorin greeted, extending his long-fingered hands in the traditional Han gesture of profound gratitude. "Words cannot express what you and your forces have done for my people." Blake accepted the gesture with a respectful nod. "We came to help, Ambassador. I'm only sorry we couldn't prevent all the damage." "Compared to extinction, these wounds are minor," Zorin assured him, gesturing toward the city. Already, Han medical teams were setting up treatment centers for both their own people and injured human soldiers. "What you brought us was not just military victory but hope. You showed us, and the galaxy, that determination and intelligence can overcome even the most daunting odds." Davis smiled slightly. "That, and a whole lot of missiles." 1 week after the liberation of Han, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The chamber hummed with excited conversation as representatives discussed the shocking outcome of what many had dismissed as a hopeless human gesture. Speaker Dorn called the session to order, her crystalline form seeming to vibrate with suppressed emotion. "This council recognizes Ambassador Zorin of the Han Federation. Zoran took the central podium, his posture straight and confident, a marked contrast to his previous appearance. Honorable representatives, I come before you today, not with a plea but with gratitude. The Ha'an Federation endures because of the courage and skill of our human allies. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as Zoran activated the holographic display. Instead of scenes of destruction, it now showed human and Han medical personnel working side by side to treat the injured, engineers collaborating on reconstruction projects, and the Han capital beginning to return to life. When I stood before you seeking help, many offered words and distant promises. Earth offered immediate action. Zoran's gaze swept the chamber. They came not with overwhelming numbers or technological superiority, but with determination, adaptability, and a willingness to coordinate with our people as equals. The hologram shifted to display footage from the space and ground battles, the precision missile strikes that disabled rather than destroyed, the coordinated ground tactics that neutralized superior craft numbers, the integration of Han resistance fighters into the overall strategy. What you see here, Zoran continued, the Krath have termed dishonorable warfare. They expected set-piece battles where superior individual strength would prevail. Instead, they encountered what human military historians call shock and awe, coordinated action designed to disrupt enemy capabilities rather than engage them directly. Ambassador Lee stepped forward to join Zoran at the podium. Earth did not intervene in this conflict seeking glory or conquest, she stated clearly. We acted because a peaceful civilization faced extinction, and because we had the capability to help when others could not, or would not. Speaker Dorn's crystalline form shimmered with what those familiar with Alani expressions recognized as embarrassment. This council acknowledges Earth's unexpected contribution to galactic security. The question before us now is how to proceed regarding the Krath Empire's aggression. A Krath representative, not war leader Voss, who had been recalled to face his superior's judgment, but a lower-ranking diplomat, rose to speak. The Empire acknowledges its misjudgment regarding Ha'an's sovereignty. We are prepared to offer reparations and formal recognition of Ha'an independence. The Ha'an Federation accepts these terms, Zoran responded, with the additional requirement that the Krath Empire renounces all claims to Han medical technology and commits to non-aggression for a minimum of 50 standard years. The Krath representative hesitated only briefly before nodding agreement. The cost of refusing, with human warships still in orbit around Han, was too high to contemplate. As the formal proceedings continued, representatives from various species approached the human delegation during recesses. Many expressed admiration for Earth's tactical innovations. Others seemed concerned by the implications of humanity's unexpected military effectiveness. Your species has proven surprisingly capable, a Nexus proxy commented to General Blake during one such conversation. 50 vessels accomplishing what would have required hundreds of conventional warships. Blake smiled diplomatically. We've had to learn to work with what we have, not what we wish we had. Sometimes limitations breed innovation. In the months following what became known as the Han Crisis, a formal alliance was established between Earth and the Han Federation. Human military advisors remained to help develop a modest Han defense force, while Han medical specialists shared advanced techniques with human doctors. More significantly, Earth proposed the formation of a Galactic Defense Accord, a mutual defense pact open to any species that wished to participate. Unlike the loose structure of the Council, the Accord would establish protocols for rapid response to aggression and provide training in coordinated defense tactics. Initially viewed with skepticism, the proposal gained support as more species recognized the limitations of the Council's existing security arrangements. The Krath Empire's easy subjugation of Ha'an, and humanity's equally surprising reversal of that conquest, had exposed vulnerabilities throughout the galactic community. 1 year after the crisis, Ambassador Zoran stood with General Blake and Ambassador Lee on an observation platform overlooking the rebuilt Han capital. The city gleamed in the azure light of Han's sun, medical facilities once again bustling with activity. In orbit, a mixed fleet of human and newly commissioned Han vessels maintained a vigilant patrol. When I came to the Council seeking help, Zoran reflected, I hoped for salvation but expected abandonment. What you brought us was more than military victory. You showed us that even a peaceful species need not be helpless. Blake nodded thoughtfully. And you showed us that there's more to galactic citizenship than technological advancement or ancient lineage. Sometimes what matters most is simply being there when you're needed. Ambassador Lee gazed upward at the star-filled sky. The galaxy is changing. The Krath won't be the last expansionist power to threaten peaceful worlds. What we build now, this alliance, this accord, may determine whether the future brings more conflict or a more secure peace. Zoran's specialized optical organs adjusted to focus on the distant stars. When I asked for help, I had no idea you would bring such shock and awe. You have given the galaxy something to think about. That's what humans do, Lee replied with a slight smile. We surprise people, sometimes even ourselves. As night fell over Han, lights began to appear in the city below, not just the soft blue illumination traditional to Han architecture, but occasionally the warmer tones favored by human visitors. The blending of these lights seemed to symbolize something new in the galaxy, different species not merely coexisting, but actively collaborating, combining strengths to overcome shared challenges. The Han crisis had begun as a desperate plea from a peaceful civilization facing extinction. It had ended, not just with liberation, but with the foundation of something potentially more significant, a new approach to galactic security based on coordination rather than mere accumulation of force. For General Blake, watching the stars from the observation platform, the victory brought not triumph, but sobering responsibility. Humanity had demonstrated its capabilities to the galaxy in unmistakable terms. How those capabilities would be perceived, as threat or promise, would depend on what they did next. To new beginnings, Zoran offered, raising a ceremonial Han chalice in the traditional toast of his people. Blake and Lee raised their own chalices in response. To new beginnings, they echoed. Above them, the galaxy turned, its countless stars bearing silent witness to this small moment on a single world. A moment that might, in time, reshape the course of interstellar civilization.